Welcome to Inside Voices, a brand new teacher podcast made by teachers for teachers. We aim to discuss all things education. We're going to talk about classroom tips all the way to current hot topics. I'm your host, David.
And I'm Laura.
Remember, in here, we use our inside voices. So our first topic is going to be technology in education.
Yeah.
And we think it's such a hot topic at the moment. That would be a good first podcast topic. So for you, how has technology changed your practice in the last 5 years?
I think when we started teaching, it was still an important part of what we were doing, but I think now it's so much more integrated into our everyday sort of learning and everyday classroom management. I think people sometimes think technology, you can just use it for enhancing learning experiences, but actually it can enhance your time management. It can enhance the classroom experience in general, the way the classroom runs. You know, things are so much more streamlined when you can use bits of technology to enhance your experiences here and there. So, for example, having like QR codes for websites that are, for some reason, a mile long. You can't get a student or 7-year-olds to type that in because there's letters here, numbers there, everywhere. So a simple thing like a QR code, which, let's be real, wasn't really a thing when we started teaching. QR codes weren't...
Yeah, no, they kind of came back in COVID, didn't
they?
They kind of made a comeback for some reason.
They weren't really used, but then we took that and we said, I'm going to put them up around the room. And that way you're not asked or interrupted multiple times to ask how you get onto a website, because they can just go over and get on it themselves.
And I think for me, the best thing about technology in practice is, you've kind of hinted to it there a little bit, is your time. So for teachers, like, time is currency. And for me, like, I don't know about you, but for me, if anything can like save me some time, technology is probably the one thing that's going to do that. For other teachers, it's not great because they didn't maybe start with technology in their practice, so they're learning all these things, but we've like grown up with all that stuff and it just makes things so much quicker. So this is kind of like a preference thing. What would be your like favorite piece of technology that you use in class?
So in terms of devices, or in terms of like, I
would say like
resources.
So it doesn't have to be like digital technology. It could be like a resource.
Okay. I honestly think, though, I'm going to go really bog standard answer with this one, because we've worked with the iPads, we've worked with the laptops, we've kind of seen the laptops be pushed to the side. Yep. We've worked through that, and the Chromebooks came to us after COVID, sort of during COVID. I find so many children now don't know how to touch type, because it's been screens. And you kind of touched on it as well when you said we were sort of brought up with technology, but the technology we were brought up with was going home and open up your laptop so we can type really quickly, and we can type, you know, we used to pride ourselves on like closing our eyes and being able to type without looking, and all those challenges you used to do, whereas now you ask someone to type and they just go with their, because that's what they're used to. It's all iPads and screens, right? So a Chromebook gives you the features of all the touch screen things that you need. So you can use it for digital art, you can use it for handwriting, you can use it for scanning the QR codes because the camera's pretty good. You can use it for everything that an iPad or other touchscreen device is going to do. But then you also have the ability to teach touch typing. And I think it's something that is still a skill that needs to be taught. I take for granted that I just knew how to do it. Yeah. But you forget that people don't know how to do that. Students don't know how to do that. So I know it's a very bog standard answer, but I would say that one piece I wish we had for everyone, because they're my favourite. What about you?
For me, it's a little bit different. So we've got these things in school called Lego We Do, and they're like kits of Lego, right? And they basically come with coding kits as well. Yeah. They are a bit expensive, but I don't know how we got them anyway. They were there when we got there. And you get this kit and it's got all these different Lego pieces in it, and it's got an app as well, and then you can build a model or something, and then you can code it to do different things. So it's like all your STEM stuff rolled into one, which is amazing. And there's a couple of things like that out there. You were on a course recently for another one.
Yes, it was a very similar one. It was a Vexgo Robotics, right, or Vex Robotics, and we were using the kits, the Vexgo kits. Yeah. Very similar. It's not Lego pieces, but it's little like beams and gears and wheels, all those things. But the difference with that one is you don't need to necessarily use the app to code. Yeah. So you could kind of make coding a separate part of the lesson. They can get used to the build first, and they can make a kind of motor switch that locks in place so their devices or their builds still move. but then coding can come later, which I think is quite good because it separates the two skills because they are very different. You know, one's focusing on the engineering and the problem solving, and then if you add coding to that, sometimes it can be a bit challenging especially for younger ones. So the Vex robotics is very similar, but they love it. It's so engaging.
This is the thing. I can't believe how much the kids are interested in this kind of thing. So our students go wild anytime I put them out for them because they're just so interested in building the Lego, and then they're so interested in coding as well. So I would say I use that apart from your laptops, your iPads, your Chromebooks, Google, the internet, all that stuff. Yeah, I use all the time. But that is the one thing that I think has changed my practice because I wasn't really interested in coding. I didn't know how to do it. I didn't do computing at school. But that's made it so accessible for them. And I remember we were talking recently about school when we were young and how different it was from what it is now and how we could like never be a teacher like 20 years ago.
Wheeling the TV out.
Yeah, so like you wheel the TV out and you get, you know, a video at the end of the day on Friday or something. It was just like the treat of the week. But now everything is digital. So I was actually clocking up in my head like how many things that I use that are digital that didn't exist 10, 15 years ago. So I was thinking like my smart board, everything's on my laptop. I've got my morning slides. I've got basically everything I need to teach is on that smart board. I've got all my games. I've got my YouTube videos. I've got everything really that didn't exist 10 years ago, 15 years ago. When I was in primary 7, that's when we got our first smart board. I actually remember it being installed. I remember like the overhead projector had like a big boom almost.
You had to calibrate it.
You had to calibrate it, you had to touch all the corners. And the teacher like hated it and he kept like bumping his head off it and stuff. It was just a total nightmare. And it never really worked properly, but we were obsessed with that thing and we never really got to engage with technology in the way that children do now.
And it's so good for higher order thinking skills as well. If you think about everything they're doing in a design process all the way through to coding, you're hitting every aspect of the higher order thinking skills with it.
Yeah.
But I mean, we've spoken a lot about the technologies that we use with the students and with the children, but in terms of a technology piece that enhances your experience and improves your practice, what are you going to go for? What's your favourite?
Okay, current hot topic, current piece of technology that I think every teacher should be getting on board with, it has to be artificial intelligence. Like AI has completely changed the game for me. So,
it's definitely a hot topic right now. That's a hot take.
So I think there's been like big technological advances in the last 50 years that have changed teaching. Have changed the world really. You can think of like even the typewriter coming in and then you get into computers and word processing and then you move on to like the internet, iPads, touchscreen, the whole thing. That changed everything slightly. I think the internet was probably the biggest one that changed most things. But like artificial intelligence is going to change it. Like I'm so excited for I'm quite excited for how it's going to change things for teachers and for students.
It's like the ChatGPT revolution. It sort of started off everything. And I agree with you. I think it's a lot of the skill in teaching and a lot of the difficulty in teaching, I think, comes from time management as well, because you spend the majority of your working day doing your job in front of the students, and then you have to be able to plan and prep and go to the meetings and, you know, do all the paperwork you need to do in the hours after or before that time. And it goes so quickly. Like when you come in the morning, you have an hour, maybe an hour and a half, depending on when you get in, to get yourself organised, get things prepared. So if you can save yourself some time using artificial intelligence, you know, I don't need to type every word into my slides to know what I'm teaching. You know, QueryPod, for example, is a great one, I think, to be using, because I can go in and I can type in, okay, we're learning about nouns. So I can type in nouns and I can set my grade level or my level that I'm working with. And I would still go through the slides and edit them. Artificial intelligence is never going to be 100% reliable, I don't think. You can't mimic human qualities. You can get pretty close, but it's not going to be 100% reliable. You know, we might need to change some parts to suit the needs of our classroom. But that overall has saved me 30, 40 minutes from making up my own slides and typing them. And QueryPod is so good because they can play along with you as well. So if you haven't used QueryPod, it's an artificial intelligence that designs your slides for you, and it's kind of like Kahoot as well. sort of a cross between them. So the students can scan a QR code on a device and then they can play along with you. So there's slides that are just information, and then there's slides that might be a quiz, or it might be a poll option, or it might be like there's word clouds and things as well, isn't there?
There's like fast finishers and stuff like that on it as well.
And it can design everything from like projects, brain breaks, whole lesson plans. There's so much on there, and it's all things we would be doing anyway. So they generate the information, and as long as you go in and check it, it is so good.
So you kind of touched on something interesting there, teacher time management, and that is a big thing in teaching at the moment, because there's so many things being piled there's so many things being piled on teachers at the moment. There's more paperwork, you're doing a lot more in terms of the children's social lives, you've got more meetings and things like that. So teachers' time is being squeezed from every angle, I think. And if artificial intelligence can come in and help us with that, I think we should be jumping on board. There's obviously dangers. There's obviously things, and we've spoken about this before, there's obviously risks involved with every new technology. But I think it's going to be something that really helps teachers in the near future. So is there any disadvantages to using machine learning, artificial intelligence? Do you think there's like one main disadvantage?
I think it has to be very thoughtfully used in a classroom environment, in any environment. So it needs to enhance experiences and not just replace them, because there are things that you don't want to just stick an iPad or a Chromebook down in front of them, or here, use this app, when it's not actually going to make the learning experience any better. It's going to be, if you can get outside and do a learning experience, that's maybe going to be more useful or beneficial than doing it with technology. For example, go outside, if it's a nice day, you can do your number lines in chalk. You don't need to do that on a Chromebook. You don't need to have an app for that. And I think every learner's different as well. You've got to tap into what they find engaging and what they want to do. So you'll have learners who, yes, will be far more engaged on a device, whereas if you put a worksheet out or say we're going outside, they're not going to want to do it. Whereas technology can kind of pique their interests a wee bit. But I think you have to really be focused on where it's going to enhance and where it's just being put in because, we need to use technology, so we need to throw this app in, or we need to use this, we need to put them down in front of these Chromebooks. You have to actually think about what the aim is you're trying to achieve and whether or not it is going to be beneficial for time management or engagement or enhancement of their learning experience, rather than just, we need to use tech, so we'll just put it down. Is it going to actually make things better? Yeah,
I totally agree. We are so keen to get technology out in front of children and to use it in the classroom. And I think one of the main disadvantages of that is reliability on technology, rather than just using it to enhance your learning, as you said. So for example, if you go on a website, I was on one the other day and I was trying to teach French through this website, and it's such a good website. Like, it really is such a good website, and it has good games on it. And I used it before and it froze. Like, it just froze. It was one of those days where everything was going wrong. And that technology ruined the learning experience for the children in that moment, because the website completely froze on all devices. It just wouldn't work. And we just had to kind of throw out the idea and do something different. So I think you're right. The disadvantage of technology generally is just, if it works, it's great. If it doesn't, it really hinders learning, and you have to be smart to that. One of the disadvantages for AI, for me, having used it, and I think I've personally used it quite a bit compared to other teachers. When it started coming out, I was right in there wanting to use it because I saw the opportunities. But I think one of the difficulties is laziness.
Yeah.
I don't know if you agree. Maybe it's just me. Maybe it's just my personality. I'm not sure. Maybe I just look for the shortcut or look for the easy option every time. But like, that laziness in the back of my head kicks in sometimes. So if I can go on in the morning, type in one prompt and get 12 slides, there's just something about that in me that goes, yeah, that sounds quite appealing. So I think the danger for me, and probably for a lot of teachers and management out there and kind of senior leaders, is, okay, use this tool, but use it sparingly. Mm-hmm. Like, we have to advance with these technologies, and we have to teach the children about them 100%, and we have to use them to our benefit. But there's that danger that you're going to rely on it rather than relying on your professionalism and your skill.
Yeah.
I think as a teacher, and you can maybe talk to this because you're kind of interested in more the social and emotional level of teaching. I think as a teacher, there are so many layers that you can provide to a child that artificial intelligence will never provide.
Yeah.
That a machine could never provide.
Yeah.
Because one of the questions at the moment is, okay, why should teachers be allowed to use it and students can't? So a lot of high school students are like, I don't know if you see this on TikTok and Instagram and stuff, but a lot of high school students will comment on my TikTok and be like, this is so unfair that you're using artificial intelligence. This is ridiculous. Like, I can't believe you're using this and we're not allowed to. Like, we get pulled up for our essays and blah, blah, blah. And I think there's a kind of deeper message behind that, in that teachers need to know the content and everything.
Yeah. I don't think you should be using it to learn a skill, though. So
no, you're right.
If you are, for example, even a student teacher, and you're learning how to formulate a lesson plan, how to formulate good questions, how to formulate good structure, you probably shouldn't be using AI to do that, because it's not actually going to help you. You know, the same as you wouldn't want a student to write an essay using AI, because it's not actually their information. They're not learning anything about analysing. They're just typing in a question prompt. And then also, how do you know it's right? Because if you don't understand the concept yourself, you can't check it. Whereas you could argue that if a teacher's using it, we said earlier, you have to go through and check it. So I'm still using my skills, and I'm still using what I know about good quality, higher order thinking questioning. I'm still using my knowledge on good structure in a lesson, of what the lesson needs to contain, but in a different way, because I'm checking it rather than typing it all out myself. So I wouldn't use it if I was learning something new. So like, I'm doing my master's right now. I'm not going to go on and type into artificial intelligence, give me the answer to this essay question and send it, because it's not teaching me anything.
Exactly.
So
it's a bit more responsibility on you then, as well as the learner. I
mean, if I was teaching high school, would I be sitting here in the same position being like, yeah, it's a great idea? Probably not. But the age I teach, they don't write essays, and they're not going to be on getting artificial intelligence to do their homework for them or do their work for them. So I'm not concerned. But if I was teaching university or high school students, I would totally see where people are coming from when they say, you know, it should be banned. So for example, like, authorities would ban ChatGPT in their authority, so you can't get on it on like authority Wi-Fi, which I totally get, because if you are in that setting where the students are old enough to be on there and you know, using it, you'd be slightly concerned. It's hard to tell if they're using it or not as well.
Yeah, totally. The laziness is a big one for me, and obviously students using it inappropriately is a big one for me as well. But I think there's so many benefits to it. Before we talk about the benefits, what do you think are the social and emotional sides of teaching that we can provide that artificial intelligence is never going to provide? So a lot of people are worried, like, are robots going to steal our jobs?
You're just going to have a robot teacher?
Are teachers going to be replaced by robots?
No.
And I don't think the answer is yes. I think there's such a level that teachers can provide for students I think it's different than machines. What do you think?
Absolutely. And one of the hardest things I think about teaching as well, aside from time management, is if you're having a rotten day, you're not having a good week, you're not feeling great, you go in there and you are basically performing for 6 hours. You know,
you are the Oscar.
Exactly. It's basically a Broadway show at this point, and that's really difficult. Whereas if you put a robot in front of someone, you don't get any of that emotion. You would just get a still personality, could you even call it a personality, from this artificial intelligence. There's no pizzazz, there's no relationship building, there's no, you know, little jokes here and there. There's none of that. And then you end up with robotic students. You end up with students that are all the same. Yeah. So one of the skills in teaching as well is being able to adapt how you respond to certain students. So, you know, one of the things that you look out for is everyone else says, okay, active listening, I want to see how you're listening, but every student listens differently. So you're scanning the room and you're saying, okay, I know that student is listening to me, but they might be fidgeting, they might not be making eye contact. That's fine. I know they're listening. I know they're focused on me, and I know that's what they need to do. Whereas if you put a robot in front of them, it's not going to be able to detect that. It can't detect emotion. It can't know your students the way you know them. So robots are never going to steal our jobs. Okay, this is not going to happen. It can't possibly happen.
Jump cut to 20 years when they've totally stolen all our jobs.
I'm sitting in my home in my house because I don't have a job anymore because there's a robot there.
So I think if you put like an umbrella term over all that, it's relationships, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
So relationships are so key for teaching. If you don't build good relationships in your class, Every teacher knows this. You're never going to get those kids on side. They're never going to want to learn from you. Yeah, they might complete their tasks. They might work hard, whatever. But if you're going to get the best out of your students, you really want good relationships. Mm-hmm. Sitting them in front of a Chromebook all day, sitting them in front of an iPad all day, sitting them in front of Google all day, or artificial intelligence, you're never going to get the same level of output from them. And that human connection as a teacher is so important for me. It's one of the best things about being a teacher, in my opinion, because you can build those relationships with your class, and class on class, like year on year, you get different relationships. So currently I can have such a laugh and a joke with my class, and then they get back down to their work. And that might not be the same every year, but that's just the group of students I've got. And I think that's so valuable. And anyone that's worried that artificial intelligence is going to steal their job or,
you're fine.
You know, like it's Terminator or something, they're going to come and take over the world. Okay, maybe that's going to happen. I don't know. But not in teaching. It's just, there's too much relationship.
It's too much of an emotional job as well, for us and for the students.
Totally.
Because they can shift how we're feeling as well. It's just never, like you said, relationships are the heart of everything. You hear that. It's constantly what you hear. But true relationships are at the heart of everything we do.
Exactly. And that got
you're
so
never
cheesy,
gonna get that.
Like
you're never going to get that from a little robot.
Exactly. Okay, switching up tones slightly. If you had to get rid of one single piece of technology from schools forever, like you never had to see it ever again, what would that one piece of technology be?
Is it something that I don't like using or something the students don't like using? Because that's two different things.
Okay, give me both.
I think the ones that I don't like using, though, are more my confidence levels rather than it being something that isn't useful. So, for example, like...
Okay, wait. Say the first thing that pops into your head. What would you get rid of? Go.
I hate digital art stuff. I'm so bad at it. I should use my growth mindset. I'm not good at it yet. I've been trying, okay? I've been trying my whole life. I really do try. But the students are so good at it. See, if I give them a design challenge on Canva and I say, go and design something, and we were doing... you had posted a hydration drink and I sort of pinched your idea, and we were doing healthy eating. So we made a healthy drink and we did all the learning behind it. And then their design brief was to go and design their own healthy drink. And then they had to make a digital art poster. And then they also had to make an advertising video. And I made one as an example, and it was truly awful. It was terrible. But they're all saying to me, oh, that looks so good. That's brilliant. No, it wasn't. You don't need to lie to me. But theirs were fantastic. So I know it is such a good skill for them, and I know it's a skill that they need, and I know it's a skill that in the future is going to be really important for them, and I can see some of them going into that in the future and that being something they do for a living. But for my skill set, it's just because I don't have confidence in it and teaching it. I think it's a good one, though, to give them and run with it. So I feel bad saying I'd get rid of it. I would only get rid of it if I have to. Teach every aspect of it.
And what's the thing you would get rid of for the students? What would they get rid of?
For the students, I'd have to get rid of, those programs that they're quite outdated now. There's a lot of, I think, programs that are designed to be helpful that are isolated programs. So for example, you might have like a maths one or a spelling one or a writing one that when they came out 10 years ago, they were really useful. But now those things are integrated into other more sort of bog standard things. For example, word processing. I spoke about dictation features earlier. 10 years ago, there was apps that were focused on dictation, and that was it. That's what they did. And they were focused on supporting dyslexic learners, and that's what they did. But now that's integrated into... I don't know if Google have it, but I know that Microsoft have it integrated into everything they use. And I absolutely love that. Immersive Reader is a game changer, but it then takes away the streamlined sort of easiness of it if you have to log into a whole separate app for it. I think that's kind of had its time. It's probably on its way out anyway, but I don't see the need to have 44 different apps when you could condense that to like 5 that do the same thing. And
it's like the not the Chromebook, it's like the QR code scanners. Remember, everyone used to have the app on their phone for your QR, but now it's just in your camera. It's the exact same thing. And I love how much you were like sweating, trying not to like name certain apps there, and like how pressured you were.
I didn't say anything.
Okay, so for me, my one that I would get rid of for probably students and teachers is laptops.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, laptops.
And I would replace them for early years and maybe for the first couple of years of high school with Chromebooks. And then I would go more robust for like upper high school for your coding and all that, for your proper computing, like get a desktop, get something that's got good processing on it. But laptops are so brittle.
It depends which ones you're using though, I suppose.
Oh, totally. It depends which ones you're using. But any experience I've had in teaching with laptops has been pretty savage. But Chromebooks are, I think, the way forward. They're so quick. They're just on. They've got that like flash drive. They've got kind of no hard drive. They just go, and it's like brilliant. I love Chromebooks. I'm a big fan. So that's the one I would get rid of.
If you had the one, we've spoken about devices and such, but if you had one, you could only use one app or website, that side of technology, what are you going for? If you had to just keep one.
Okay, so if I was giving advice to a teacher, if I had to keep one, you've already mentioned it, but I'll mention it again, and this is not sponsored in any way, but if you want to, I don't know, maybe.
You know where we are.
You can find us on all social medias. If I had one to keep for teachers and for the benefit of students, it would be CuriePod.
Yeah.
And the reason for that is, and if any teacher is listening to this, you have to go and try this out. It's CURI pod. You have to go and try this because basically it can make slides, but that's like the basic version of it, and it's totally free. You can go on and make your slides, but you can edit your slides, and those slides then come with, like, it makes a word shake, or it makes like a word cloud, or it makes a quiz, or it just gives you all these options within your slide. It gives you a starter, it gives you a plenary, it gives you everything, and your students can go on and interact with it as well.
It's instant data as well.
Instant data, yeah, I forgot to say. So if you go on, you can then check all their answers and all their feedback, how many times they voted on something, how quickly they answered. You usually forget that stuff in your class. Like if they put their thumb up or if they put their hand up or something, you take a quick and you're like, oh, okay, yeah, I kind of understand if everyone's on track, but then you forget the next day.
Yeah.
Or you don't get the full amount of data. So that is like perfect data. That is the one thing. If I had to give a piece of advice to a teacher, I would give that piece of advice. Go and try out CuriePod.
Yeah. Give it a try. Don't overwhelm yourself, the same as we're getting rid of the 44 apps and we're condensing it to 6. Don't overwhelm yourself trying to find, I think when there's a trend with something as well, like, you know, you see it with everything. There's a trend in something and all of a sudden there are hundreds of options.
Yep.
And if I was a new teacher now, I think I would be watching social media and I'd be watching these conversations and these debates and going, oh my days, there are thousands of websites I keep seeing pop up. I don't know which ones to go on. There's hundreds of AI things that I keep seeing and I want to use them all because I want to try and be on the trends. I want to try and be with the times. Do not try and stress yourself out with it. The same as we're not using the 44 apps. We're not using 77 different AI websites because we just need to try them. You find one or two that work for you, and I think you're right, CuriePod is a really great one. You find what works for you, and I'm not saying stick with it forever. You got to kind of move on when you need to move on, but you don't need to have everything. You do not everything needs to be technology based and used, so don't overwhelm yourselves with it. Yeah,
so I think we've discussed kind of technology today, and technology in education is always changing. It's like an ever-changing, like, kind of beast, isn't it? It just grows and grows and grows, and people jump on these trends and they move with the times, and then something gets discarded and a new technology comes out. And I think our message would be, and our kind of helpful hint to a teacher, I suppose, would be that you have to use it sparingly. You have to go at your pace, try stuff out, give it a go and see if you can use it and if it advantages your class. If it's a disadvantage and it's holding back your students or it's taking too much time.
Not even a disadvantage, even if it's just not making things better.
Exactly, yeah.
Like,
I think you should cut back and just try one or two things out.
Yeah.
Like artificial intelligence or like your Chromebooks or like your iPads, and just go slow. Like if it's your first time using technology in the classroom, just go slow. Just try one or two things out and see how you get on and how comfortable you feel. Ask some of the teachers in your school. I don't know, ask for advice, go online and see a couple of, maybe look at a couple of videos and things, but go slow and use it sparingly would be my advice.
And the students will probably surprise you with their level of skill as well. Like me with my digital art, if you're worried about coding's always the one you get. People are like really nervous to try coding, but the resources out there for coding are designed to be child friendly, and honestly they blow my minds with the stuff they can do on the coding sites.
Yeah, so like Laura in our digital art, you got to grow your own growth mindset. You got to be confident out there, and
check me be a graphic designer next time. Watch me turn my life around.
Thanks for listening to our first ever recording of our podcast, Inside Voices. You can find us on all social media and keep an eye out for our next release. And remember, in here, we use our inside voices.